All right, boys and girls, today your goal is I can round to the nearest tens inside a 3 or a 4-digit number. Today's lesson is going to be a little different because you're going to learn from me through video. Let's take a look right here at a review slide just to review rounding to the nearest tens and using our strategy sleeve because that's what I want to practice using is your strategy sleeve. So notice what I'm going to do. It says to round 63 to the nearest 10 using the strategy sleeve. So I know that I have the number 63 and I can see that I've got a 6 right there. So that means it's going to be between 60 and the next nearest 10 is going to be 70. I know that inside here I have the number 65. So when I'm looking, I see that 63 is probably going to be over here somewhere, which means that it's going to round to 60. Now, over in the red box, this is what I want you to do. I want you to put a 63 right in the middle. Then, on top of that, I want the two benchmarks. It's going to be between 60 and it's going to be between 70. Now, I'm looking at this 3 right here, and I know that my magic number is 5. That makes me bump up. But I have a 3 there, so that tells me, you know what? Keep the 6 as 6 tens, and it rounds to 60. So did you see how I want you to use this red box over here? That's what we'll be doing throughout the entire presentation. All right, here's an example now, because remember our goal was to round to tens inside a 3 and a 4-digit number. So notice that I have 827 up at the top, and I want to round it to the nearest 10. So this is going to be a little bit different, all right? So I want you to notice, I'm going to actually write the number 872. In fact, I think I'm going to stick it right here, 872. Now remember, I'm rounding to the nearest 10. So the important thing about that is I need to concentrate only on the tens place. Do you see that? So I'm going to go ahead and I notice that I've got a 7 right here. So that means that I'm between 70 and 80, right? Now, the interesting thing about a 3-digit number is I can't just leave the 8 out. I have to add the 8. So watch this. That means that my number is between, here's my benchmark numbers. So I have 870 and it's between 880. 880. Now, in the middle here, just like I had a 70 and an 80, I'm going to have a 75 up here, okay? So I have 875. Now, if I've got 872, is that going to go on this side after 875, or is it going to go before 875? It's actually going to go before 875, which means it's going to round to 870. So I'm going to go back over to the red box and I'm going to say that this is what it rounds to. So do you notice here, when we're rounding to the tens, we pay attention only to the last two numbers when we're rounding. And then we round it just like we're rounding to the tens. But we have to keep the 8 on there because it's holding the hundredths place. Let's look at another example. All right, I have the number 642. So I like this workspace. And on your sheet of paper, when you get ready to do this, you're going to need to use your workspace. So I see 642. I notice that I'm round, oh, excuse me, 646. Oh, got to change that. All right, I notice that I have 646. All right, I am rounding to the nearest 10. So I'm going to come over here and I am going to box in the 10 that I'm working with. So I've got 46. So I see my 4 here. So I know it's going to be between 40 and it's going to be between 50 because that's the closest 10, right? But remember, we can't leave the 6 off. We have to keep the 6. All right? So now I'm looking at this 6 right here and I have to decide, is that going to bump it up to 50 or keep it at 4 tens? Is it going to bump it to 5 tens or keep it at 4 tens? If I've got a 6 right here, that means that I have my magic number is 5, so it's 5 or greater, and it's going to bump up. So this says, hey, bump right up, which means that I'm going to be closer to 650. Watch it on my strategy sleeve. So notice that I am putting this right here. So I'm going to put 640 as my number right there. And then notice that I'm going to put my 650 right here. Okay. Now the tricky thing is this is 40. Then this has to be 45, right? And then this is 50. But because it's got the 6 there, we're going to have to add a 6 there. So my middle number is 645. So notice I have 640, 645, 650. So the difference is 40, 45, 50. I've just added the 6 to the hundredths place. Now, I need to find 646 because that's what I'm working. So look, 646 would be somewhere right in there, okay, because it's after 645, which means that 650 is what it's going to round to. And notice how those two are equal to each other. Okay, now on your sheet of paper, you're going to see in the top left box, you're going to see a strategy sleeve. And what you need to do is, do you see the number 825? I want you to try this one on your own. I want you to write 825 in your workspace, 825 in your workspace. I want you to box in 25 because remember, we're rounding to the tens place, and that's only 2 places. All right, I want you to fill out the benchmark number up here, the benchmark number down here, and that's going to be done in your workspace on your sheet of paper. Then I want you to take those 2 numbers and I want you to put them on your paper right there. I want you to mark 825 right here somewhere mark it, and then I want you to circle which one it rounds to. Go ahead and do that on your paper now. You can pause this video and go ahead and do that. Okay, now you're ready to try another one on your sheet of paper. Here we go. So this time I have 914 and I am still rounding to the nearest 10. So I'm going to put 914 in my workspace. This is your new box. You have another box there. You're going to put it in your workspace 914. We're still rounding to 10. So we're going to go ahead and box in the 10. And then we need to find a benchmark number up here and a benchmark number down here. We need to take this benchmark number and we're going to put it right there. We're going to take this benchmark number and put it right there. And then, of course, we're going to circle which one it's closest to when it rounds to the nearest 10. Remember, don't forget to put your 9 in there as well. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your sheet of paper. All right, now we're going to get a little trickier. Notice this time, this is an example that I'm going to show you. So notice this time we're still rounding to 10, but this time I'm using a 4-digit number. Now don't let that worry you at all. I'm going to use the same strategy. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put 8,366. Now, do you remember that we're still rounding to tens, right? That's what we're rounding to, is the 10. So I'm going to use the same strategy. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to box in the 10. All right, I see the number 66. So I know that 6 goes here and 7 goes here. So I am rounding to between 60 and 70, right? Now I've got these other numbers in front of me as well. So I'm going to just go ahead and add them. So I'm going to put my 3 there and my 8 there. I'm going to put my 3 there and my 8 there. So now this is the number I'm going to put over here. So I'm going to put 8,360 goes right there. And then I'm putting this benchmark number right here, 8,370. Now, when I'm trying to find out what number goes in between, I see a 60 and I see a 70. So I know this has to have a 5 with it, right? So this is going to be 65. So notice 60, then I have 65, and then I have 70. but it can't just be 65. I've got to add those other numbers. So I'm going to put a 3 and a 1. So we have, oops, excuse me, an 8. So we have 8,360. 8,365 would come right in the middle. 8,370 is over here on the side. Now I need to figure out 8,366. So when I'm coming here, I'm going to notice that that is going to be right about there, which means that I am going to be rounding closer to 8,370. But let's take a look at the other way that we can look at this. Notice, if I have a 6 right here in the ones place, I'm going to say the 6 bumps it up to the 10. I'm going to have 7 in the tens place. So that means I'm going to have 8,370. All right, let's try another example. Here's another one. We're going to round 1,079 to the nearest 10. So we're still staying with the tens. Notice I'm going to use my workspace, 1,079. Here's my workspace. Now remember, I am rounding to the tens. So I don't care how many numbers are in front. I'm just concentrating on the tens place. I see 79. So I know because this is a 7, it's going to be between 70 and it's going to be between 80. But we can't leave it like that. We have to add the other numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy those other numbers. Now, I see my 9 right here, and I know that if it's 5 or greater, it's going to bump me up. So I know that instead of 79, I am going to be closer to 80. So I'm going to be closer to 1,080. Let's look at it on our strategy sleeve. So right here, I'm going to put this 1,000, and I'm going to put the 70. And then here, 1,080. I'm putting that right there. And notice that I have my 70 and my 80. And I know this has to have a 5, so it's going to be 75. And then I add the other things with it. Okay, 1,075. All right, and that lets me know I've got 1,079, which is going to be right in there. And that means that I am going to be closest to, oops, I lost my dot, which means I'm going to be closest to 1,080. All right, now it is time for you to try on another sheet of paper. So if you're looking at your sheet of paper, you're actually going to see there's another box. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to your workspace, and remember we're doing 3,486. Write that in your workspace, okay? And then I want you to box in the tens because that's what we're working with. All right, and then I want you to come up with your benchmark number here and your benchmark number there. You're going to write your benchmark number here, right there, and you're marking this benchmark number right there. All right, and then you're going to decide what 10 it's closest to, and you're going to circle which one it rounds to. Go ahead, pause the video, and do all those things on your sheet of paper with this number. Okay. Now we're going to try something else that's new. This time I have got the number 5,938. But notice I want to round it to the nearest 10. So do you see this little workspace right here? 5,938. And I want to round it to the nearest 10. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to box in my 10. And then I'm going to say to myself, now notice I don't have a strategy sleeve this time. We're going to try it without the strategy sleeve. So I notice that I've got an 8 here. I know that if I have 5 or greater, it bumps me up to the next group of 10s. So this bumps me up to the next group of 10s, which is going to be 40. But my answer can't be 40 over here. I have to have the 9 and I have to have the 5. So if you notice, my answer is going to be 5,940. Now, the tricky thing about this assignment on this one is that now you have to take the same number and we're going to round it to 1,000. So I'm going to come back to my workspace and I see 5,938. And this time I want to round to the thousands. So I'm going to need to go and box in the whole thing, right? Because that's 4 places. And so I'm going to look right here because that's the hundredths place and it's going to tell the 5 what to do. I see that it's a 9. And I know that when I use a 9, it tells me to bump up to the next 1,000. So I'm going to turn this one into 6,000. So watch what we just did here. What we did is we said that 5,938, when it's rounded to tens, is 5,940. But if it is rounded to 1,000, it rounds to 6,000. Let's try another one just like that. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my work in my working box, 7,215. Notice that I want to round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to box in my 10. You see me box in my 10? All right, and I notice that I have a 5 right here. And I know that when we get 5 or more, it bumps it up to the next group of 10. So this becomes a 20. All right, but I can't leave it as a 20. I have to add my 2. I use my comma and then my 7. So notice this is going to go right here, 7,220. See that 20 right there? That's the nearest 10. Now I also want to do the nearest 1,000. So I'm going to go ahead and write my number again, my working number, 7,215. And this time I'm going to box in all 4 numbers because we're in the thousands place. And I'm going to go to the hundreds place right here at the 2. And the 2 is going to give me directions on what the 7 should do. Now remember that 5 is my special magical number that bumps things up, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. Why have a 2? And a 2 says, you know what, just stay in the thousands place, just where you're at, and everything behind that becomes a 0. So I can come over and say, you know what, when I round 7,215 to the tens, I get 7,220. But if I round it to the thousands, I'm just going to get 7,000. Okay, it's time for you to look at your sheet of paper. And you're going to see something here that has a working space. And I want you to take the number 3,474 and write it in your working space. And then I want you to round it to the nearest 10. And when you're done with that, so let's box in the 10, round it to the nearest 10. Then I want you to come and I want you to put 3,474 because we're rounding the same number. And this time we're going to round it to the thousands. So I'm going to have you box in the 1,000. And I want you to round to that. You're going to put your answer here. You're putting this answer here. All right, go ahead and do that. Pause the video and you can try this one on your own. Okay, we're on the very last one. And this is another try it on your own. So what I want you to do is notice that we're going to write those numbers. We're going to have to round to the tens and we're going to have to round to the thousands. So I'm going to put my working number in the box, 4,627. And then I'm putting 4,627. And I would like for you to round the top one to the tens. And I want you to round the bottom one to the thousands. And you're going to take this information and put it here, and this information and put it there. So go ahead, pause the video, and complete the sheet. When you are done with the sheet, I need you to put this sheet in the box and then come and see your teacher.